Howdy folks, and welcome back to World of Warships with Rear Admiral Jingles, and today's video should be quite a challenge because right now I've got a tiny little, well, not so tiny actually, she's getting pretty big pretty quick. A little cat lying on top of my mouse hand having a really good purr, demanding scratches. So this should be an interesting video to make. Anyway, this is Fasey, in everybody's favourite, overpowered and no longer available for purchase unless you're lucky enough to get it in a loot crate, overpowered Tier 7 Premium HMS Belfast. What's so overpowered about the Belfast? Well, unlike all of the other British light cruisers, the Belfast can fire high explosive, and it has an awful lot of reasonably rapid firing 6-inch guns with which to do so, 12 in total. 6 in the front in 2 turrets and 6 in the back in 2 turrets. Well yeah, but HMAS Perth at Tier 6 also fires high explosive shells, and nobody complains that the Perth is overpowered. Well, they don't, and that's for a good reason. You see, while the Perth is similar to the Belfast in that they both have smoke, although the Perth smoke works differently, and they both have hydro, so they can detect any torpedoes fired into their smoke screen, the Belfast has one thing that the Perth doesn't. The Belfast is the only British cruiser at Tier 7 or below that has radar, and unlike the British cruisers at Tier 8, 9 and 10 which can have radar, the Belfast doesn't have to give up the smoke screen in order to get it. It's the only British cruiser that has hydro, smoke and radar all at the same time. And the reason that's important is because while the Belfast, like all of the other British cruisers, can hide within their smoke screens and be reasonably safe from torpedo attack by using their hydroacoustic search, all of the other British cruisers in those smoke screens are as blind as a bat and must rely on their teammates to spot anything outside of the smoke screen. This is true of all other British cruisers with the smoke screen consumable. Yes, the Neptune and the Minotaur at Tier 9 and 10 can both have radar, but they have to give up the smoke screen in order to get it. Not so the Belfast. The Belfast can operate alone on a flank, hunting destroyers, spot a destroyer, pop its smoke generator, activate its hydro to give it advance warning of any torpedoes fired into the smoke screen, and in the absence of any teammates, using the radar can still spot targets outside of the smoke. And that is something that no other British cruiser can do, and that's what makes the Belfast overpowered. And when the Belfast doesn't even have to use its own smoke, if you manage to convince one of your destroyer teammates to drop a smoke screen for you, as Fasey has just done here, hell yes! Other people's consumables are always the best. One of the downsides of having a Belfast, and there aren't many downsides, aside from the fact that it doesn't have torpedoes, you really have to start clutching at straws to find anything wrong with this ship. But one of those things is that it's not really that useful for training other British cruiser captains. You pretty much, if you want to get the most out of the Belfast, have to invest in a dedicated captain for it, because it has high explosive shells, and they are only 6-inch guns, so you really kind of need the IFHE skill, which is just a complete waste of 4 points on any other British cruiser captain, because none of the other British cruisers, with the exception of HMAS Perth, fire high explosive shells. It's always been quite useful playing the British light cruiser line, because once you've got a 10-point captain, you're good. You just don't really need any more points. Once you've got concealment experts, there are other things that are nice to have points in, but you definitely don't need them. You'll notice he's running the hydro, and they did detect some very optimistic torpedoes launched from the south over there that stopped well short of actually being a threat to anything. But at least it's nice to know that there is an enemy destroyer around. Surprised he didn't switch to armour piercing for shots at the broadside shores over there, particularly at that kind of range, but, well, looking at the amount of damage that he's doing even with the high explosive to broadside cruisers, and the amount of damage that he's doing to this Warspite, I think it's pretty clear that he is actually running a dedicated Belfast captain here, and does have that IFHE skill. Fubuki nosing out a cover down there. And he has just used his own smoke generator after the smoke deployed by the friendly Akatsuki dissipated. The Fubuki could have the 10-kilometer torpedoes, so he could actually be in torpedo range, which means there's going to be a bit of a waste of a smoke screen here, because his hydro has run out. It's not going to be available for at least another minute, so there may be torpedoes on the way into this smoke screen right now. And there's nobody spotting anything. He pops his own radar here, just in case the Fubuki and the Warspite are both still within detection range. And initially, at least, they aren't. Anti-aircraft guns back on, because he's probably going to want to vacate this smoke screen soon, and it wouldn't do to be spotted by aircraft when he does it. The Warspite has just popped back into detection range, closely followed by the Fubuki. And if that Fubuki does have the torpedoes that have the range to make it to this smoke screen, they're going to be appearing very, very soon, because they are kind of slow, but it's been a while, which means that Fasey is probably going to have to vacate this smoke screen early, or run the risk of getting torpedoed. And since there's now clearly nothing else for him to shoot at over here, having to leave the smoke screen ahead of time isn't actually a terrible idea. There was nothing else there for him to shoot at anyway. So, he's managed to vacate the smoke screen undetected, with any enemy ships that were aware of his presence, presumably still thinking he's inside the smoke screen. And he does have a couple of shots at a couple of targets, but he's in open water, he is in a light cruiser, and that's an awful lot of ships that could very quickly swing their guns around in this direction. But he's been detected anyway, so he's not really losing anything by firing at this point. Question is, what was it that detected him? It certainly wasn't any of those battleships or cruisers. Was it the Fubuki who was accompanying that Warspite? People are starting to pay attention to him now, although there's a limited number of enemy ships that actually have a line of fire to him. The Warspite, of course, is one of them, although as yet the Warspite's guns aren't pointing in this direction. The Bismarck to the background, yep, there's the smoke screen, it's the Fubuki. Right. Now the Fubuki is significantly closer than he was when we last spotted him. So even if he doesn't have the 10km torpedoes, Fasey is still in range, and if he has the stock torpedoes, they're a damn sight faster than the 10km ones. There's the Shores again, getting a spot of revenge, sailing in the other direction. Shots coming in from all directions. Hydro is up. His smoke screen is ready to go, as is his radar. And this is another one of the things that make playing the Belfast so much fun, because you do tend to come across a lot of enemies, like that Fubuki there, who have not yet learned which ships do and don't have radar, and what the range and duration of those radars are, making them easy prey in situations exactly like this. Fasey does lose sight of the Fubuki, but, well, he'd knocked his engine out, so he wasn't going to have gone far. And he did manage to get his torpedoes away before Fasey took him out, but there's no way the torpedoes are going to hit anything. Well, they might hit something, but it's not going to be Fasey. And he's lost about half of his health in that brief encounter, but he now has a good few hundred meters of additional rock armour in the shape of that island protecting him from any immediate threat. And since it's been a good 20 seconds since he last fired at anything, any ships that do have a line of fire on him are now pretty much firing blind. Now, taking a shot at that enemy Shores here is definitely going to get him spotted, but he does still have one other ace up his sleeve. His smoke screen's ready to go. He didn't need to use it against the Fubuki. So it's going to take him a couple of seconds to go undetected, because he did trigger the smoke when he was going faster than 12.5 knots. But now he's unspotted. However, his Hydra's on cooldown, but there doesn't really appear to be anything that's in a position to threaten him with torpedoes, except for maybe that Charles Martel, who might momentarily have been within 9 kilometers and managed to get some torpedoes away. But the biggest threat right now is the fact that the smoke screen is only so big, and he's a bigger target than a destroyer. So all kinds of shots that are being fired blind to this smoke are actually finding the target. What happens next, I have no explanation for. You'll notice that Fasey has switched to armor piercing. That's why Fasey switched to armor piercing. I don't know, maybe this is the Shores first game. Maybe he's never played the Shores before. Oh, torpedoes. Yeah, I do think they were from the Charles Martel. The Shores certainly doesn't have torpedoes with a range to even travel that kind of distance. So the only possible explanation I can think of for why he suicided like that is because this was his first game in that ship, and he just didn't understand how fragile that thing is at any kind of range to armor-piercing ammunition, particularly when you give broadside like that. But hopefully he's learned his lesson now. In other good news, you may have missed it happening, but at more or less the exact moment that Fasey obliterated that shores, the enemy Belfast was sunk, which means that the enemy team is now completely radar-free. All good news for ships that rely on smokescreens, like Fasey's Belfast here. He is faced with a little bit of a conundrum at the moment, however. The smokescreen is about to expire, and while he has done over 100,000 damage, the team are not winning by much. This could still go either way. Unfortunately, with the smokescreen expiring, he's in open water. He doesn't have a heel, which is something that any other British light cruiser from Tier 4 and up would have, but the Belfast doesn't. So he's going to have to be very careful here. I mean, he wants to keep firing. 111,000 damage is good, but he needs to keep pumping the damage out. He's a top tier cruiser. But by carefully judging just exactly who does have a line of sight to him when he does reveal his position by firing, he can hopefully maximise the amount of outgoing damage while minimising the amount of incoming damage. So this shot against the Warspite was actually very well calculated. He just didn't count on the Charles Martel coming around the side of the island at the exact same moment. And that's going to be trouble. Because even though his smokescreen is ready to go, and he is using the smokescreen, he's on very low health. That's a heavy cruiser, armed with 203mm or 8-inch guns, and the Belfast is a cruiser, not a destroyer, so the firing from smoke penalty is significantly larger. And even though he's inside the smokescreen, the Charles Martel can now see him anyway. And I'm pretty sure that while that Charles Martel would probably have died anyway, if not for the swift reactions of Fasey's teammates, he would have taken Fasey with him. Even so, he's not out of the woods yet. The La Galissoniere is shooting at him, and that smokescreen looks very, very close. And it's not the La Galissoniere. Oh, radar's ready. Oh, hello, Mr. Akatsuki. Fancy seeing you there. Enemy destroyer at close quarters. Sonar operator, tend to your set, please. Although it's doubtful. I mean, he may have fired torpedoes now, but there was an island in the way. He didn't have a clear shot, even into this smokescreen. But just to be on the safe side, we're going to inch forward, so any torpedoes fired are going to miss. And there's the Warspite again, or it was. And he's... oh, high caliber to go with the Confederate. 139,000 damage done. That Warspite is probably very, very upset with Fasey, because basically, I think the majority of that 139,000 damage has been done to this poor Warspite, whose damage control is now on cooldown. He's firing blind into the smoke, and scoring a couple of hits, although he's firing high explosive. Then again, 15-inch high explosive. You can Citadel a Belfast with 15-inch high explosive. Yeah, the Warspite's done now. The first shot that was fired blind just as he disappeared set him on fire. He'd used the damage control, so the second and third fire were guaranteed to finish him off. And it happened just in time, because the smokescreen has expired, but there are no longer any surviving enemy ships within range or within line of sight. Something which Fasey is no doubt very happy about, because he's probably extremely tired of getting shot at by now. But as we used to say in the Navy, if you can't take a joke, you shouldn't have joined the mob. And, unless I'm very much mistaken, which, let's face it, wouldn't be the first time, I do believe that La Galissoniere over there with the space skin is the last surviving enemy ship on this flank. Now, he's in shooting range, but he kind of still has most of his health. Well, he did. I have zero doubts at all, however, that if Fasey were to suddenly open fire on him right now, that La Galissoniere would instantly switch targets and blow this Belfast out of the water, because he is a very low health target. And sinking ships is the name of the game. So I'm not entirely surprised that Fasey has decided to not open fire and leave the La Galissoniere to the rest of his teammates. Selfish? Maybe. But you have to look after number one. You're no good to your team dead. And God knows there are enough players in World of Warships who are no use to their teams alive. Based on his performance so far, however, I'm reasonably confident that Fasey is not one of them. He's probably going to want to be extremely careful that he doesn't get spotted from the air. You'll note he's turned his anti-aircraft guns off. Because you know what carriers are like when they spot ships on very low health. They do like to put the boot in And he's been hit by so many high explosive shells right now that he probably doesn't really have much left in the way of anti-aircraft guns in the first place. Now, provided nobody on the team does something amazingly stupid, they should be able to win this. Although I've seen teams in better positions than this snatch defeat from the jaws of victory. The La Galissoniere has been sunk, which, let's face it, was fairly inevitable, which just leaves the carrier, that Farragut over there, who's currently enjoying the unwelcome attentions of the enemy Shikoku. It looks like he was trying to sneak around. I don't know if he thinks he's going to win by capping, or if he's trying to attack and sink the carrier, possibly both. But that just means that he can't go undetected, and he's enjoying the full attention of the enemy carrier, which is never pleasant when you're in a destroyer. And Fasey could shoot right now, but the Farragut could easily kill him. And then the Farragut solves the problem for him by smoking up. Which means Fasey can now creep close enough to the Farragut to be able to light him up with his last radar and hopefully do enough damage to him that he can sink the Farragut before the Farragut can turn his guns on him and possibly kill him into the bargain. The only problem is going to be the enemy Enterprise, who has dropped a fighter squadron on the top of that Farragut smokescreen to defend him from the friendly Shikoku's attack aircraft. But with your anti-aircraft guns off, you should be able to sneak close enough to be able to activate the radar and get the drop on the Farragut. And then, just as luck would have it, the fighter squadron consumable expires. The timing could not possibly have been worse for the Farragut. Although the enemy Enterprise is sending a squadron of rocket attack planes over, but at this point, now that he's actually crossed into the cap circle, the Farragut is going to know that he's no longer alone in here. So, swing the ship around, bring all the guns to bear. He's spotted by the aircraft now anyway. There's the radar. Shots out. And that was a great hit. Not quite enough. The Farragut returns fire. He has nothing to lose by shooting. He's taken the Farragut out, but not before the Farragut managed to get some licks of his own in. Oh, and there's the enemy Enterprise as well. Killing the Farragut got him the Kraken, but he might not live to enjoy it. Rocket attack planes coming in, but the friendly carrier has vectored a fighter squadron to intercept. He's gotten away with it. He's managed to set the enemy Enterprise on fire, but, well, that means nothing. Of course, now he's facing every cruiser, destroyer and battleship player's worst nightmare. He's on low health. There's absolutely no point in leaving his anti-aircraft guns turned off now. And he's now at the mercy of a top-tier aircraft carrier. And he has exactly 1 health. Oh well, it was nice while it lasted. There are fighters on them. They're coming around again. Oh, he survived. Okay, the enemy Enterprise is under attack from the Shikoku, so he's got his fighters up. But the Shikoku is on low health. And if the Enterprise wants to strike the Shikoku, he's going to have to fly over the Belfast. And let's face it, he wants to finish off the Belfast. And here come the dive bombers. Even with his anti-aircraft sector reinforced, he probably has hardly any anti-aircraft guns left. Oh well, it was nice while it lasted. Oh, they missed. Okay. But, well, it was a full squadron, so there's plenty more where they came from, and this time he doesn't have the benefit of fighter support. More shots out at the carrier. Sets him on fire again, but, as we all know, that means exactly nothing. Bend over, stick your head between your legs, and kiss your ass goodbye, Fasey. Oh, missed again. What dark sorcery is this? He does still have 1 strike remaining. 2 elements being recovered. There's a 3rd element in the air, and it's coming around. Oh, I can't look. Here they come. Oh, they've missed. I think I see a pattern emerging here. And the Enterprise has run aground. He's launched rocket attack planes. Or has he? Wait, now he's recovering his rocket attack planes. Now he's launching torpedo bombers. I think he's probably going to die, but as long as he still retains control of the aircraft, even after the carrier has been sunk, and it has, he can continue to attack with the aircraft. So, here come the torpedo bombers. Fasey is within the protective umbrella of the Shikaku's fighter aircraft, but he doesn't really seem to need it. How many strikes is that now that have missed a one hit point Belfast? I don't think this one's going to miss, though. No. I think Fasey's luck has finally run out. Which is a shame, because all we had to do was survive for another 2 seconds and the match would have been over. So, but a win's a win. And it's a plus 3,000 base experience win as well. So even if he was robbed of his survival, I'm pretty sure Fasey is not complaining. Fairly sure the enemy Enterprise player, on the other hand, had a few choice words to say about the result of that match, but like I said earlier, if you can't take a joke, you shouldn't have joined the Navy. And on that bombshell, that's it for today. I hope you enjoyed it, and as always, take care, and I'll catch you next time.